everybody, my name is Ryan. Welcome to the Irish Sports Pages. I really hadn't thought about doing another channel. I do have a channel on sports and sports cards called History Through Cards, but uh, today was kind of an interesting day. I woke up and it was snowing like hell, like it is everywhere else. And it also happens to be the 30th anniversary of my father's passing. And Dad, wherever you are, thank you very much. I really appreciate what you did for me growing up. So thank you. And so I figured I might as well do a a channel dedicated to my father in part. So when I was a kid growing up, the first thing I would see is my father reading the newspaper every day, waiting for me to wake up in the morning. And I was probably like a preschooler, you know, maybe 2, 3 years old. And so I always wanted to kind of emulate what he had did, whether it would be shaving, as we all used to see our fathers shave, or read the newspaper in my case. Because I always saw him read the newspaper. I always saw my grandmother read the newspaper. I come from a long line of journalists in my family, so that's really what I always wanted to do is become a journalist, and so I did that. And I always loved reading the obituaries or the Irish sports pages because people interest me and history interests me as well, and that's where these two things can intersect. Uh, I do find that everybody has a great story to tell, and sometimes they may not be around anymore, but that doesn't mean that their story can't continue in this medium here. And I really kind of wanted to discuss some of the people, places, things that are no longer around, just to kind of introduce you or maybe sometimes myself to some of the stories that we have forgotten about, or places, businesses, or some cases like an extinct animal. Um, and so today, in my introduction here, I wanted to introduce to you, or maybe reintroduce to you, a gentleman that was very influential to me as a kid, and that's Art Bell. And if you're not familiar with Coast to Coast AM, as I was, and I used to listen to Art Bell and Coast to Coast like, religiously, and it was sometimes it was really scary, sometimes it was really goofy. You never know who was gonna be on the air, so it was really exciting and I think very informative as well. And as you guys can see here in the back, I have a book. It's the UFO Handbook. I was at one point very interested in aliens and UFOs, but somewhere along the line in 2001, 2002 or so, I walked away from that subject completely. Um, and so like I did have later on in about 2021 and 2022, I did have my own UFO sighting. In fact, I had three of them, and so I I wasn't gonna go there. I really wasn't. But it's a subject that I kind of like. I walked away from, and then it just kind of like said, "Hey, there you are. I gotcha." And so I've been kind of sucked in ever since. But a lot of that had to do with I think Art Bell and how many people listened to him. So I uh, read his Irish Sports page, and I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about it today. So here we go. This is from Tuesday, April 17th, 2018. Radio host focused on the weird, fantastic. Late night talker Art Bell was 72 by Mark Fisher of the Washington Post. In the small of the night, when the mind is opened and the defenses are eased, mysteries blossom and conspiracies run wild. In the darkest of hours, Art Bell was a light left on for the lonely, the insomniacs, the Americans searching for answers in a society they believed was spinning out of control. For more than 2 decades, Art Bell, who died April 13th at 72, stayed up all night talking to those people on the radio, patiently encouraging them to tell their stories about alien abductions, crop circles, anthrax scares, and, as he put it, all things, quote, seen at the edge of the vision. The Nye County, Nevada Sheriff's Office said an autopsy will be conducted to determine the cause of death. At Bell's peak in the 1990s, his show, Coast to Coast AM, was on more than 400 radio stations. He took calls all night long, alone in the studio he built in his isolated homestead in Pahrump in the Nevada desert. He punched up the callers himself, unscreened, keeping one line just in case those wanted to talk about what really happened at Area 51. The U.S. government reserve that for decades has been a locus of UFO sightings and purported encounters with alien beings. Long before fake news became a political topic, Bell made a good living encouraging Americans to accept the most fantastic and unlikely tales, to believe that we are not alone, to accept that in a world where the pace of life seemed to quicken with every passing year, there were forces from beyond that were trying to tell us something. In about 40 cities around the country, and in London and Tokyo, Art Bell chat clubs met regularly to hear talks by ufologists and by ordinary people who described their near-death and past life experiences. He also had more prominent guests on the show: singers, comedians, actors, scientists. Bell started his show in 1984 doing a standard issue political talk program, but he quickly tired of the predictable, emotionally distanced debates over the issues of the day. For Bell, the questions of the night were infinitely more powerful. In 1996, Bell suggested that the Hale-Bopp comet, then the subject of great popular fascination, was being trailed by a UFO, a theory cited as a possible reason why members of the Havens Gate cult committed mass suicide the next year. There is a difference in what people are willing to consider daytime versus nighttime, Bell told the Washington Post in 1998. It's dark and you don't know what's out there, and the way things are now, there may be something. Bell's voice was unusually formal, with a classic announcer's cadence, patient and crystalline, by no means a sleepy sound. What he offered listeners was companionship and a therapeutic acceptance. The novelist Don DeLeo once wrote that if you maintain a force in the world that comes into people's sleep, you are exercising a meaningful power. Had 10 million listeners. Bell, who drew an audience of about 10 million listeners a week, saw himself not as an authority, but as a fellow explorer. He wrote his gullibility proudly. He believed in possibilities, and he loved the idea that his openness to paranormal events had helped build the nation's appetite for Twin Peaks, the X-Files, and other expressions of the edges of reality. He wrote a book, The Quickening, spelling out his theory that every aspect of life was accelerating and challenging so dramatically that the world was hurtling toward doom. Of course, Bell had his own experiences that matched those of his callers. On the way home to Pahrump from Las Vegas one summer night, he and his wife Ramona were about a mile from home when the couple gazed up. Hovering over the road, they saw an enormous triangular craft, each side about 150 feet long, with two bright lights at each point of the triangle. After a while, the craft floated directly over the Bells. It was silent, Bell recounted, dead silent. It did not appear to have an engine. After a few moments, the craft floated across the valley and out of sight. On the radio, when he told such stories, he would ask listeners to try to send mental connective thoughts to asking the beings to show themselves. It really doesn't matter to me that much if anyone believes me, Bell said years later. Thousands of people saying the same thing cannot all be wrong. And if they were wrong, at least they were wrong together, he said. Whether his show was taken as entertainment or a revelation, he believed it was healthier than the other blather on the radio. Morning shows that compete to find the worst language that you can manage to get on the air, the most controversial topics, he said dismissively: guns, abortion. I talk about weird stuff, and I do only works at night, only on the radio. His politics were all over the map. A self-described libertarian, he opposed abortion, supported same-sex marriage, and was skeptical of the science behind global warming. He blamed Richard Nixon for spawning a nation of cynics, supported Barry Goldwater in 1964 and Ross Perot in 1992, came to consider Bill Clinton a great president, and said he voted for Barack Obama in 2008. Bell had no stomach for haters. He had a white supremacist on as a guest, made him comfortable enough for him to spout racist views, and then Bell informed the guest that I am married to a brown-skinned Asian woman. Born June 17, 1945, in Jacksonville, North Carolina, Arthur Bell III grew up with a 7-transistor AM radio tucked under his pillow at night, and when he was supposed to be sleeping, he listened instead to the pioneers of talk radio as they batted around alternative ideas about who really killed John F. Kennedy or how the CIA controlled people's minds. He was a medic in Vietnam. Bell, a Marine brat who said he attended more than 30 high schools as his family moved around, served as a medic for the Air Force in Vietnam, and began his broadcasting work on the military station in Okinawa, Japan, where he once stayed on the air as a DJ for 116 hours non-stop, earning an entry into the Guinness Book of World Records. He also held the record for sea-sawing while broadcasting 57 hours. Top 40 AM radio DJs did that sort of thing in the 1970s. After studying engineering at the University of Maryland, Bell returned to radio, playing the hits on small stations in New England and California. The work left him feeling empty, and he moved to Las Vegas, where he was working as a cable guy when a radio station asked him to take on a part-time overnight slot as a talk show host. His nightly coast-to-coast show ran from 1989 to 2003 and continued broadcasting on weekends until 2007. He briefly returned with a satellite radio show in 2013 and an online program, Midnight in the Desert, in 2015. That show ended after a few months because Bell said someone had taken to firing a weapon at his Nevada property. Naturally, Bell died on February 13th. That is really interesting. There's a lot going on with Art Bell, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. If you have any favorite episodes of Art Bell's, let me know. I walked away from all that stuff long ago. It just got crazy, and one of the things that I really kind of enjoyed was one episode where there was a guy who claimed to be from 2037, and he came back and like tried to. Well, he needed a what was it? A an antique computer from like 1975 to prevent like a civil war or something like that. I thought it was a great story, and I still think it's a great story. But some of the other things, I was just like, "Ah, come on, really?" And it was entertaining. No matter what you thought, he had an entertaining show. So this is my look at Art Bell. And again, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate it. And I'll have some more stories for you guys in the near future. But take care. Bye.